Hello and welcome. I'm Narayan Raghuram, an Associate Systems Engineer at Nutanix. Today, we're going to learn about an important piece of configuration for Nutanix cluster, which is essentially carried out before putting the cluster into production. This piece of configuration is security hardening. What we are trying to achieve here is to enhance the overall security for the system and its services and reduce vulnerabilities. Having said that, we consider that we are at a point where the Nutanix cluster is already built and has all the basic configurations in place. So let's focus on the security part of it. Since the manual configurations and security checks cannot keep up with the ever-growing list of security requirements, Nutanix Security Baseline conforms to RHEL 7 Security Technical Implementation Guide, which is also called as STIG. But what is this STIG? A Security Technical Implementation Guide is a cybersecurity methodology for standardizing security protocols within the network, servers, and so on to enhance the overall security. The rules that are defined here are capable of securing the kernel, bootloader, file system, service control, file ownership, authentication, and logging. But how is this implemented in our security infrastructure? This is implemented via SCMA, the Security Configuration Management Automation. SCMA, which is a framework, works along with the salt stack to ensure that all services are constantly inspected for any variance to the security baseline policy. If any component is found as non-compliant, it automatically reports such inconsistencies and reverts them to the baseline without any intervention. This SCMA can be scheduled to run hourly, daily, weekly, or monthly based on your business needs. And not to be worried about the performance penalties because this has the lowest system priority with the virtual storage controller, ensuring that the security checks do not interfere with the performance whatsoever. And lastly, we have security updates. So Nutanix provides continuous fixes and updates to address threats and vulnerabilities. There is Nutanix security advisories, which provide detailed information on the available security patches and updates. For more information on this, you can log into support portal and check for the details. Coming to the demo part, we have divided this into two parts. The first part will be NCLI based, meaning it will be command line, and the second part will be GUI based, which is done through Prism. So for this video, we'll only be covering the part one, and for the part two, we'll be doing another video in this series. So in part one, we'll see changing the default passwords for AHV, CBM, and IPMI, hardening AHV and hardening CBM. So basically, whenever you build a new system from the scratch, mostly it will be configured with default credentials, which will be available in public domain. So it is highly recommended to change the default passwords for all the access points of your system. In our case, it's AHV, which is the hypervisor, the CBM, which is our storage controller, and IPMI are the three main access points with default credentials when deployed for the first time. So we'll see how we can change the default passwords. And then coming to hardening of AHV, will enable AIDE, Advanced Intrusion Detection Environment. Just to give a brief about AIDE, how it works is it takes a snapshot of the system settings, the registry hashes, the modification timestamps, the file ownerships, modifications, and all these details, and builds a database. And whenever integrity tests are run, it compares the current status of the system with this captured snapshot details. And if there are any variants detected, it will automatically report and remediate. So we are going to enable this AIDE on both AHV and CBM. And secondly, we'll enable a strong password policy, which ensures that whenever you change the password, you reset the password, you should meet certain requirements. So this will be enforcing to have a complex password of at least 15 characters. And then we'll see how to edit the banner, how to have our own custom banner, where to edit it, and how to enable these security banners while accessing. And then we'll see how to enable the core dump. So basically, it's not recommended to have this core dump enabled all the time because it's going to generate a lot of logs, eventually eating up the space on the home partition, which is bad for the performance, and it can result in a lot of other ripple effects. So this should be enabled only while troubleshooting or if a Nutanix engineer requests to enable it. And finally, we have the SCMA schedule, which can be customized to run, like we discussed earlier, hourly, daily, weekly, or monthly. And it's the same for the CBM as well, except for the SNMP. You can enforce the SNMP traps to be sent or compatible with version 3 only. Version 2 is also available, but version 3 is much more secure than version 2. So you can enforce SNMP v3, which we'll see in our demo. And in part 2, which will be covering in another video, we'll be having user management, how we can integrate Nutanix Prism with centralized user management like Active Directory or LDAP. And then we'll see how we can replace the self-signed certificate with a CA certificate on Prism and Prism Central. And then we'll also see how we can enable cluster lockdown and enable key-based access to the cluster. And finally, data at rest encryption. It's also done through the Prism. And since this is not an interactive session and a recorded session, you might be having few questions. So for all your questions, you can please log on to this next.nutanix.com, which is our own community, where you will find people from Nutanix background. So if you have any questions, you can get them answered on this community. So let's see, and let's switch to the demo.
So let's begin with modifying or changing the default passwords to the password of our choice. So this is being discussed in the KB article of 6153. If you log into Nutanix portal, you can find a detailed KB article for changing the default passwords for CVM, AHV, and IPMI. All the scripts, you will find it in this article. And also this article covers how to change the password for all the ESXi host or Hyper-V host as well. So since for this demo, we have chosen AHV, we are going ahead with this. So if you have a different requirement, this KB article and find a similar script to change the default passwords. So let's begin. Let's SSH. SSH Nutanix thread, which is the IP of one of our CVM. Okay, we are through to the CVM. This is the command for changing the default password for the CVM. So this is going to change the password for the user Nutanix. It's asking for the new password. I'm going to use the same password just for okay, let me use another password. Okay. So I just changed the default password of the CVM. So the best part is if you update this on any of the CVM, this password will be reflected across all the CVMs within this cluster. So next, go ahead and change the default password for all the AHV hosts in this cluster. So this script, I found it from this KB article KB6153. So you don't have to worry about missing on this article. If you just log in, you will find this article there. So you can see that we have 3 nodes, and the script changed all the nodes root password. So even if you have like 50, 100 or any number of nodes, you can just use this to change the password for all the nodes at once. So we are done with AHV. Now let's do it for the IPMI. So as you can see, this changed the password for all IPMI for all the nodes in the cluster. So basically now we have successfully changed the default password for CVM, hypervisor, and the IPMI. So next we'll go to hardening our AHV. So as you can see, this command of cluster get hypervisor security config is just to list what is the default security parameters are configured for the AHV hosts. So if you see this advanced intrusion detection environment is not configured, core dump is not configured, strong password policy is not configured, security banner is not configured, and SCMA is configured for daily. So basically, since none of these are configured, there is no job for SCMA. So let's enable one by one. So this is the command ncli cluster edit hypervisor security params enable AID is equal to true. So this is, as you can see, it's hypervisor security params. So though we are configuring it from the CVM, this is going to configure for the hypervisor and not the CVM. And then we should be looking at, yeah, so now you can see that the ID is set to true. So let's enforce strong password policy for the hypervisor. So this is also set to true now. So basically this will enforce a complex password for a minimum length of 15 characters. Let's check the banner here. I guess we need to log into the host for this. Let's see. Okay. So we need to log into the host to modify the banner. Let's do that. So this is the hypervisor IP that I'm currently logging into. So now I'm at the host. Since I'm at the root login, I'm not going to use sudo. Yeah, see here, we have the banner. You can modify this to your security requirements. And basically, this is a default banner. I'm deleting the default US banner. I'm just keeping a warning banner. Going to write and quit. Done. So basically, you need to enable the banner by logging into each HV host. Since this is a local file, it cannot be modified, or at least we don't have a script that can modify this banner across all the hypervisor. So we just modified the banner. Now we are going to enable the banner. So now we have AID set to true, strong password policy in place, banner is enabled, and SCMA, you can have it scanned like daily, hourly, weekly, or monthly. So I'm just going to do it weekly. I don't need it to be hourly. So there you have it. So you can change it to weekly, hourly, or monthly as well. And lastly, this is the command to enable the core. So the reason that Nutanix recommends not to enable this always is because it creates a lot of dumps and it'll eat up the storage, which could cause other ripple effects. So that's why it's always best to keep it disabled until Nutanix engineer or someone recommends to enable it for any troubleshooting or so. All right. So let's move on to the CVM part. Meanwhile, let me just check if the banner took effect. Yeah, here, yeah. See, the banner that we modified and enabled is showing up. So that's nice. Let me exit. Okay, so now let's get into the CVM hardening part quickly. So now it should display the default security settings for the CVMs. So by default, everything is disabled. Let's enable the advanced intrusion detection environment. And then so ideally, we should have done this part first, hardening of AHV and CVM, and then we should have changed the default passwords. For me, I don't have a password manager. It's very difficult to generate a 15-character complex password, and so just for this demo purpose, I did the default password changing first and then hardening of AHV and CVM. So EID is enabled for all the CVMs. I'm enforcing a strong password policy for all the CVMs. So this is only for the CVM shell, and this has nothing to do with the Prism access. So this is only for SSH access that we are enforcing the strong password policy. And then here comes the ban. So here also modifying the banner. Excuse me. Now I have my banner enabled. There you go. And then we'll enforce the snappy traps to be version 3. Now same thing for the SCME as well. There you go. Let's change to weekly, and finally going to enable the core for log generation, and things go wrong. Yeah, now I'm just going to turn it back into files so that my Nutanix home partition is not flooded with the logs. And there you go. So we covered this part for this demo, and for the remaining part we'll see in the next video. So that's it for now. Like I said, if you have any questions, any doubts, anything, just come up here and shoot your questions and you will have all your questions answered. So thank you so much for spending your time here. Have a good day. Thank you. Bye-bye.